I'm telling you to get out.
My husband yells at me, glaring at me. Oh, divorce at last. I sigh. He smiles at me and says,
You're defective, so you're no longer needed.
I'm beyond angry. It's pathetic.
Don't worry. There's a woman out there who will give birth to my baby.
The ex-husband who left me and remarried the woman he cheated on me with. Look how miserable he turned out. My name is Annette. I'm a housewife. I'm 35 years old, and I'm trying to conceive. My husband Maurice, who is 2 years older than me, is a pharmacist at a pharmacy in our neighborhood. Before we got married, I was working as a pharmacist in the same office as my husband, and we started dating after he made a strong approach to me. About a year later, we got married. But since we could not have children easily, I became a housewife at my husband's request. To be honest, I was hoping to work as a pharmacist and wait for pregnancy more comfortably than trying to get pregnant while trying to make ends meet at home, but my husband insisted, so I resigned from my job. After retiring, we tried to lead a healthy life together as a couple, paying more attention to our diet than ever before. My husband also took the initiative in taking my temperature every morning and exercising with me. In this way, my husband and I both looked forward to the day when we would be able to have a child, but that day never came. My husband was kind to me at first, but it has been a year since I resigned. Now he was getting frustrated, and I was feeling more and more pressured. It seems this month wasn't good too. My husband sighed loudly in the morning when he heard my report. I was angry at his inconsiderate attitude. Let's try again next month. I tried to act tough, but what came out of my husband's mouth was a terrible line.
Isn't it because of your age? Your sloppy lifestyle has caught up with you. You can't even take care of yourself, and you're just a housewife. You're a housewife, and you can't even take care of yourself. It's absolutely ridiculous that you can't have a baby even after quitting your job and devoting yourself to conceiving a child. You're the one with the problem. You're a one-trick pony, aren't you? It's definitely genetic, right? Your parents also had trouble having kids, right?
He made a terrible accusation. I was deeply disgusted. Blaming my parents for my inability to have children without any evidence is unforgivable. I invited my husband for a fertility test to clarify the issue, but he said,
It's a waste of money. I have a sister and all my relatives have many children, so there's no way I'm the cause of infertility.
I decided to take the test alone. The results were clear, proving that the infertility was not my fault. When my husband heard this, he said,
Maybe the test is wrong. You wasted your money. You're a woman who spends too much. If you move in with my parents, you could save money on renting utilities, and you'd be able to do your chores easier and have kids sooner, right?
To be honest, I don't like my in-laws, and I don't want to live with them. Whenever I visit my husband's parents, I'm treated like a servant, and I have to listen to them talk endlessly about their old boasts and hardships. And at the end, they always demand that I give birth to their grandchildren as soon as possible. It's impossible to conceive under such pain and pressure. It's totally impossible to live with them. My husband's parents live 2 hours away by car, and I think about his commute for his work and for my fertility care. I refused on the grounds that the clinic was too far away. Then my husband said that he could ask for a transfer to a pharmacy near his parents' house. I pointed out that we were renting an apartment, but the contract says that we have to wait a year to avoid penalty. Then he shut up. I was relieved that my husband was a cheapskate for now, but I'm not sure when he will try to make me move in with his parents again. I wondered if I should continue my examination under such circumstances. After that, my husband began to avoid me in the morning, and my fertility examination did not progress at all. On the contrary, my husband worked overtime or went on a business trip, and we saw each other less and less. As these days continued, my husband suddenly told me that he was going to go out on his own to have a child. He told me that he had requested a transfer to a pharmacy near his parents' house. Instead of living with his parents at home, he would be renting an apartment. My husband is a cheapskate by nature, but renting an apartment is very strange. From this point on, I began to feel uncomfortable. I asked him to refuse the move, but he said he could only do it if I was fertile.
No.
He proceeded to make preparations on his own and left the house with a sense of relief. He started his life as a single man, and as expected, he never called me or made any sign of coming home, even on holidays. 6 months later, a young woman I didn't know came to my house unexpectedly. She looked to be in her late 20s. "Hi, I'm Maurice's girlfriend. I got here earlier than I was supposed to." Within a few minutes, my husband came home.
"Oh, you got here before me."
My husband said this and started to make a call on his phone somewhere. After the call, I said, "What does this mean?" But for some reason, my husband remained silent. Then, the intercom suddenly rang. It was my in-laws. "Did you call them?" I retold the truth in front of the family.
"I'm getting remarried to someone who will bear my child. This woman is pregnant, so you are done. Get out now."
He keeps talking and said something I don't understand, and hands over the divorce papers. "Wait a minute. What do you mean she's pregnant? Does it mean you had an affair? I'm not infertile." I asked him questions one after another.
"You're the kind of person who can't have a baby. Just shut up and leave."
"What's going on? Explain yourself." I questioned him some more, and now my father-in-law intervened.
"That's enough. We're gonna have the baby we always wanted. The best thing you can do now is leave."
"I'm talking to my husband because I can't get through to him. So why are you two here?" Maurice sighed heavily.
"Huh? That's enough. We don't need to talk about it. You're lucky you don't have kids, or you'd be in serious trouble over child support. All you have to do is sign the papers and walk out. It's that simple, isn't it? Now get the hell out."
"Why are you saying that all of a sudden?" I thought my husband was going to say something in response to my words, but the woman he was cheating on me with butted in. "Why don't you just leave? It's your fault for not having children, isn't it? Oh, you should wear makeups before you leave. You can't go out without makeup." She said that while smiling at me. My husband looked at me and said,
"I mean, you're defective, so you're no longer needed."
I was beyond angry and ashamed that he would call me defective. "I understand. I'm divorcing you." I went to get a pen. My husband and the woman with whom he was having an affair with, my parents-in-law, are looking at me with disgusted eyes, as if they were looking at something dirty. I'm sure these people who don't know anything will regret it, but it doesn't matter to me anymore. It doesn't matter at all. I snatched the divorce papers from him and signed them. I packed my personal belongings and left the house. Then I called my parents. I have only been back home a few times since I got married. My parents told me to come home at once. I stayed overnight in a hotel in the meantime and returned home the next morning. A month later, I got a call from my ex-husband.
Hey, what do you mean alimony?
He sounded very impatient. I had obtained evidence of my husband's infidelity from a detective agency. When I felt uncomfortable with his behavior, I immediately asked the agency to investigate. With that evidence, I retained a lawyer and filed a claim for alimony. I guess he got the papers.
I'm not going to pay it. You're the cause of the divorce. You should pay the alimony.
My ex-husband kept spouting off one nonsense after another. After listening to him for a while, I thought there was nothing I could say to him. I have retained a lawyer. Please do not contact me directly. I said that and hung up the phone. I blocked his number and email address as well. I shrugged at the thought of not having to listen to his rantings. A few days later, he came to my parents' house. I had goosebumps and a feeling of disgust at what he was doing. I didn't want him to enter the house or even the front door, so I decided to go out the front door to deal with him. He told me that he was already thinking of divorce, even though he was supposed to be living with his new wife. I could guess why he wanted a divorce. So, why come all the way over here to talk to me about it?
Why don't we start over? Marrying that woman made me appreciate you all over again.
Huh? How is that possible?
Don't say that. Just because we've been apart for a little while doesn't change the fact that I love you.
It was so stupid that I had to laugh.
If you're laughing at me, then you forgive me, don't you?
Huh? Don't be silly. I wanted to stop this, but I suddenly thought of something and changed the subject. That's right. The woman you are having an affair with, Gladys, right?
Hey, how do you know her name? She didn't introduce herself, did she?
My ex-husband sounded surprised that I knew her name. Of course I know her name. I've had a professional investigator look into it, and I've sent a certified letter to demand alimony. My ex-husband seems to confirm this. So, about her. She can't get pregnant, can she? That's why you're trying to get back together, isn't it?
How do you know about that? Just how much do you know?
The truth is, the day you asked me for a divorce, I knew she wasn't pregnant. Because the pictures taken by the agency during their investigation showed her having drinks with another man at a restaurant. While you were working during the day, she was having fun with another man every day. Pregnant women aren't supposed to drink alcohol heavily. My ex-husband seems to give up and started talking about her as if he was complaining. She has a bad habit of having a relationship with too many men, and she got a bad disease that makes it difficult for her to conceive naturally. She loves to play with men, but she also wants to get married. So she set her eyes on my ex-husband, who is a pharmacist and has a stable income. All you did was tell me to get out. You didn't listen to me, so I did what you told me to do. If I had told you all that before we got divorced, you wouldn't be in this mess, huh? My ex-husband suddenly sounded depressed and victimized. I remembered his words at that time, and it made me angry. You cheated on me. You're the one at fault. It doesn't matter now, so don't ever ask me again. You're bothering me, I said, and locked the front door. He continued to ring the doorbell and yell at me. I called the police, and 2 policemen came and took him away. I recorded today's incident on my intercom, in case it might come in handy someday. 20 years later, I was shopping downtown when, to my surprise, my ex-husband approached me. I hadn't seen him in 20 years. He looked very shabby. He looked terribly dirty, though it was inevitable after so many years.
It's lonely being single, huh? So you have no choice but to hang out with your younger colleagues on your days off.
He still talks down to me. But it's not my junior colleague beside me. It's my child. It's my own daughter, the one I gave birth to. I turned out to be all right. It happened on the last night I spent with him. On that last day, miraculously I became pregnant. I didn't want to have his child, but I was so busy with divorce, moving, etc., that I didn't realize I was pregnant until after 22 weeks, when an abortion was possible. I didn't want to have a baby, but it was a life I was entrusted with. I risked my life to give birth to it and raise it as my own. I told my daughter in front of my whiny ex-husband, "He's your dad, genetically speaking." My daughter, who knew who he was, greeted him with a puzzled smile and a hello.
What? She's my daughter? What do you mean?
My ex-husband's eye widened at this unexpected turn of events. Yes, genetically she's yours and mine.
No way! You're supposed to be infertile. She's your stepdaughter from your second marriage, isn't she? If you're single, did you adopt her?
I've told you before that I'm not infertile. There's no problem. This child is mine, for real. If you doubt me, check the birth certificate. Oh, but you never had a chance to check, so it's no wonder you don't know. When I explained all this to him, he said,
She sure looks like my mother.
He nodded to himself while looking at his daughter. My ex-husband looked happy to see her grow up so honest and beautiful. He seems to have gotten carried away.
Please let me walk down the aisle with you when you get married.
But my daughter said, No way, you're not invited, and I don't know if I'm getting married. I have to be careful not to fall for a guy like you. My ex-husband stared at her in shock.
What did you teach her? Did you teach her all kinds of nonsense?
He yelled at me, which made the shoppers around us feel bad. My daughter reminded him to be quiet and said, No one told me anything about you. They told me that you divorced because you just didn't get along. But when I was in middle school, I found Mom's diary and the video of you yelling at her on the front porch, and I understand what kind of man you are. And today, I see that you're a terrible man. My ex-husband can't even talk anymore. If I had grown up around you, I would have had a hard time dating because I had the wrong standards for a man. Thank you so much for divorcing him and taking such good care of me. She smiled at me. I'm so glad I gave birth to a daughter I love and took good care of her. I'm thankful that I was able to raise her to be a kind and smart girl who loves her mother. My ex-husband looked devastated and disappeared without saying goodbye. In fact, I had heard about my ex-husband from a former colleague. He and the woman he cheated on me with are still together without divorcing, but they are still childless. His narcissist attitude has become a problem at his workplace, and it seems that no matter where he goes, he is always transferred to a different location. The other woman has not been able to adjust to his new place of work and has become a lazy pig who stays at home. I'm convinced that I made the right choice in divorcing him at that time. And although I could not afford luxury, I'm glad that I raised my daughter by myself. My daughter is my precious treasure. She is my best friend and my best ally. She is an adult now, but I will do my best to take care of her health so that I can gently watch over her and help her anytime I need to. I will continue to love her with all my heart. My daughter doesn't seem to be planning to get married yet, but I hope she will have a happy married life. I don't want my daughter to get married to a man like my ex-husband. She won't be cheated on. I just hope. And if she ever suffers from infidelity, I sincerely hope that she and her future spouse will work together to overcome it by supporting each other.